What is going on, all you wonderful A-plusers out there? It is I, Stuart, here once again to give you guys another review. This time I'm going to be talking about Legends of Tomorrow Season 6, Episode 1. Yes, that's right everyone, Legends of Tomorrow is finally back, and judging from this first episode alone, I'd say it's come back with a bang, and which is really good for me to see, because personally, like I think I've kind of mentioned on Hero Report a lot, is that I'm very mixed when it comes to Legends of Tomorrow. I feel like their seasons go from being really bad to really good to back to being bad again, and so with how great Season 5 was, part of me was kind of worried that Season 6 was going to start going downhill again, but thankfully no. Season 6 picks up the momentum of Season 5 so far anyways with this first episode, and just really keeps it going, giving us the same humor that we loved from Season 5, but also mixing it in with enough really good drama within the episode, a few heartwarming scenes as well, to really tell you that yes, this is still the same silly, wacky adventure that you're used to, but it's not like, you know, in Season 4 where all it was crazy, wacky adventures with like no substance. There's plenty of that in this episode, and there's also plenty of really great character moments as well that I'll definitely be getting into. But you know what, guys? Before I fully get into this review, I do have to give a major spoiler warning for this episode. I don't normally do this, because usually when I'm reviewing individual episodes, I always just kind of assume it goes without saying that I'm going to be spoiling the hell out of these episodes, since you know, obviously we go by scene from each episode, and we talk about, like, you know, character growth and just you know, what each scene usually means for the grand scheme of the entire show. But for this particular episode, there's kind of a really big twist in it that I still don't fully know how to feel about this. But it is still, regardless on how I feel about it, it's still a real big deal for the series as a whole. So I'm going to let you guys know right now that there's a big twist that I'm going to be spoiling for you guys, so I would recommend watching the episode first before watching this review if you haven't seen it yet already. Now that I've gotten that warning out of the way for you guys, now that you've all been warned, it's time to break this episode down and talk about it. So this episode takes place the morning after the previous episode. So if you guys remember, Sara was abducted by aliens at the very end of Season 5, and we pick up the next morning kind of seeing the aftermath of this. We find out that no one from the crew actually even noticed that she was missing, which I thought was kind of depressing. No one really noticed it until the next morning, and that's when Mick boards the Wave Rider and discovers that there's a lot of random people just like who decided to crash there overnight, and discovers that the entire crew is pretty much gone at that point. So, with the one exception, of course, being Ava. So the first like 10 minutes of this episode is really just the two of them hunting down the rest of the legends for the episode, and once they find where everyone's at, they then discover that Nate is currently talking to David Bowie, who actually has the answers as to what happened for Sara. Now, one thing that was really funny about David Bowie's introduction in the episode is that Bayrod describes him as Starman, because, you know, that's one of the many nicknames that he goes by. But when he said Starman, just with this being a DC show, I actually for a brief moment thought, wait, are we actually getting Starman on Legends of Tomorrow? No way. And then, of course, when we see it that they were talking about David Bowie, I'm like, oh, okay, that makes a lot more sense now. And yeah, it was really cool. The actor that they got to play David Bowie, I think, did a, you know, decent job portraying like a very young David Bowie. I'd say definitely, I mean, I don't know, hard to say for sure, because I kind of more know David Bowie from like the 80s onward, so I'm not sure what he was like in the early 70s, but I do think this guy did a decent job of what I would imagine a younger David Bowie looking like. And we discovered that David Bowie actually saw what happened to Sara, and that he lets the legends know that she was actually abducted by aliens, and that he filmed the whole thing on his Super 8. Although the next scene makes me completely doubt that it was a real Super 8 camera, because the the camera quality and the sound quality on this Super 8 camera is kind of amazing. Now, maybe the Wave Rider just has some real super high-tech computers that can like automatically render 8mm film into super high quality HD, and somehow even add really good high quality sound to it as well. I don't know. Either way, it was a little bit silly in that sense, but at the same time, it's a show about time traveling superheroes, so there's always some moments like this where you really got to suspend your disbelief. And it's through this video that they discover that not only did Sara get abducted, but she got abducted the night she was ready to finally propose to Ava. And because, you know, she ran into David Bowie, she needed to tell someone about this, she figured David Bowie was the perfect person to tell at that moment. But unfortunately, she gets abducted by aliens before she could go through with it, which of course makes Ava extremely depressed. And it's followed by a scene where she gets the legends all together, and they try to go over a plan on how to get her back, and this is followed by a funny gag, although slightly, to my opinion, out of character of Ava, if I'm being honest, although I did get a good chuckle out of it. It seems like she's trying to get the group organized and ready to start working on finding her, but it turns out what she's really trying to do is get all of them to leave, so only her and Nate will be the two that actually are looking for Sara, because she feels like the rest of the team would get in the way. To me, this kind of contradicts the previous like character growth that she's gone through, because she's kind of learned throughout the previous seasons that actually working together as a team is a much better solution than trying to solve things on your own. So in that sense, I don't think the scene works, but in a sense of it did give me a chuckle. I think, you know, it got that cheap laugh out of me, so if that's what they were going for, I guess it worked. But yeah, again, wasn't really my favorite part of the episode. But then we cut to Sara on the alien ship, and this is where things get really interesting, in my opinion, because I absolutely love some of the alien designs that they go for, and I'll show a little bit more of that when we move on. But we see that on the ship she has been taken prisoner to. She runs into another prisoner on the ship, none other than Spartacus himself. The dude they got playing Spartacus, I'll give it to him. He is ripped excuse me. He is ripped AF, man. Like, I am jealous. Like, I'm curious what kind of diet this dude has. But yeah, so anyways, the problem with Spartacus, though, is that he is super full of himself. So there's a scene where him and Sara Lance, for example, come across other cells, and his thought is, oh, we should just completely open up all these other cells here so we can rally up some more allies to help us. But of course, Sara knows that's a terrible idea, because you don't know what other creatures could be in these other pods, and of course it almost ends up killing them. But then, if that wasn't bad enough, they then come across the aliens that are piloting the ship, and of course they know nothing about what these aliens' abilities are, so Sara wants to wait and try to have it so they both take each one of them on one at a time when they're separated. But of course Spartacus is like, nah, that's too cowardly, so he runs into the room, tries to take down the person piloting the ship, and he gets his shit handed to him, because not only does this alien impale him, but this alien also eats him whole. And we get like an interesting mixture of practical effects and CG effects, and I think for the most part they all look really good. I love the design of the spaceship, I love the design of the aliens. If I really had any nitpicks, it would mostly be the fact that you have real cool prosthetics on the masks that allow their mouths to kind of move and everything, which is really cool, but they never blink. And I mean, I guess maybe you could argue, oh, they're aliens. Maybe these aliens in particular don't have eyelids, so they don't need to. But I don't know. To me, like, just adding simple eyelids to like have them blink or something adds a little bit more life to an otherwise lifeless mask. Whereas like just having kind of a mask that doesn't blink at all kind of takes away anything that makes it feel like it was actually alive, if that makes sense. But at the same time, I would say that the pros for the costume definitely outweigh the cons, because that's just like a small really small nitpick. In the grand scheme of things, I do think that the overall set designs and the alien designs for this look absolutely awesome. So I'm definitely looking forward to seeing what they do with future aliens going forward with Legends of Tomorrow. Another cool thing I thought in this episode, although it did kind of also make me ask a few more questions in the long run, but I do like that they at least give a shout out to the DEO once Sara goes missing, because they figure, oh, the DEO will definitely know how to find Sara. But of course, when you look at the events that happened during Supergirl, it's mentioned that the DEO was actually destroyed, so therefore they can't go to the DEO. However, that doesn't really make a lot of sense to me, because to the Legends, what is the present for the Legends? That's kind of my question, because they kind of just they tend to leave at certain time periods. Like the last time they were in the present, for example, I feel like was probably during the events of Crisis, and then they were out of the present. So wouldn't the present for them technically still be like the day after Crisis? Like, how does that work? Why is it that they can't go back in time to before the DEO was destroyed? What qualifies as the present for the Legends? And I guess you could say they can't go back in time and ask for the DEO's help, because that would technically alter the timeline. But wouldn't that have been the same thing if the DEO wasn't destroyed and they went to the present to ask them for help? Like, wouldn't that also interfere with the timeline? I'm asking way too many questions about this, and I probably shouldn't, but to me, this whole thing, I love the nod to continuity with the DEO, but it also just makes me ask why it is that they can't go back any further. And the same thing kind of happens with another character that we get, and I'll get to her in just a minute. But I also did kind of like the funny joke where Nate asks Ava if things would be awkward with her and Alex Danvers, because she, of course, slept with Sara during one of the other crossover events. But I kind of always figured, like, no, if that was an issue, then she would have had an issue with John Constantine a while ago, because, of course, John and Sara also slept together. So, I thought that was kind of a cool nod to continuity, but at the same time, it's like, if that was actually an issue, though, that would have been brought up before. So, it was a weird thing for Hank to bring up. I feel like the writers in this episode really wanted to let the audience know that they knew Supergirl existed, and that they, to let them know that, yeah, we're not ignoring Supergirl. We know that we're not the only DC show talking about aliens, I guess. So it's weird, because I both love and dislike the scene for like weird reasons. But moving on, eventually they go to the tabloids because they have nowhere else to go to find Sara, and they discover a girl who claims that she's able to talk to aliens because aliens abducted her as a child and implanted a weird antenna in her brain, allowing her to fully communicate with other aliens. And I love how it was Bayrod who came up with this, because he loves reading the tabloids when he's high, and I thought that was absolutely hilarious, because that's like me with the History Channel, which is basically just like the tabloids, except for somehow the people who run the History Channel have a degree, and and somehow it makes what they say legitimate, which I find just super bizarre, but it's still entertaining to me, don't get me wrong. We then cut to Constantine, and this is where we get the big twist that I was talking about earlier. I absolutely love the way this gets revealed to us as the audience, because we see that Constantine is looking for a very specific book, and it's not there, so his first assumption is that Gary took it. This then is followed by Sara finding one of the aliens while they're alone, and she tries to, threaten this alien in order to get information from it. We cut back to John and the rest of the crew as they're in Gary's room, where they see a cocoon, a human-sized cocoon at that, laying right over Gary's bed. We then cut back to the ship, and it's revealed that one of the two aliens that we see is actually Gary. So Gary has been an alien this whole time, and the only way he will look like Gary is when he wears the glasses. Now, because of a few episodes, like one where he gets like his nipple literally bitten off by a unicorn, this is, again, it makes me ask several questions, like, So to the glasses, so that would have to mean that the glasses aren't like a holographic projection. Like, that has to physically transform the alien into Gary. Otherwise, he shouldn't have those human body parts that get bitten off of him, in season 4. And also, it's just, I don't know, this, like, I want to say there's probably something within the show that would contradict this and make this absolutely make zero sense. But I also would have to go back and rewatch every episode to find out if that's true, and I just don't care enough to do so. So I guess I'm going to ask you guys for a favor then, in this particular case. Like, if you guys know of any scenes that completely contradict the idea of Gary being an alien, definitely let me know in the comments below so I can look through it. Just because, I don't know, with Gary being an alien, I want to say it makes no sense, but maybe I'm wrong. Maybe when you go back and you look at Legends from his first debut, which I believe was back in like season 3, maybe it does kind of make sense. Maybe it does all flow together, but either way, I personally didn't see it coming. And while I would love to believe that this all makes sense in the long run, I feel like if I were to go back and rewatch a few episodes, a few things would kind of stick out to me and I'd be like, actually, no, Gary can't be an alien because yada, yada, yada. And plus, like, maybe I'm remembering things wrong, but I swear we've seen Gary without his glasses before, but maybe I'm wrong there. I don't know. I guess I guess we'll have to wait and find out on that end. But yeah, we then cut back to the girl from the tabloids, and she's a full-grown adult, because again, this kind of goes back to Ava not wanting to change the timeline, so they go to the present time to talk to her. But again, that kind of begs the question, what is the present to the Legends? Like, I don't know. To me, that still just makes zero sense to me, because they're constantly in a temporal zone, an area that exists outside of space and time. So theoretically, the present shouldn't exist to them. But that's fine. We do meet her, and she's a complete nutcase ever since the aliens abducted her and everyone started treating her like she was insane, which, of course, much like in the real world, when you treat someone like they're crazy, they're eventually going to act crazy. So eventually the Legends do show up to try to get her help once they realize that she may not actually be quite as insane as she comes off, because she does seem to have some sort of alien tech with her. So they start to believe that maybe her story about her having some antenna in her head that allows her to speak to aliens might actually be legit. So they bring her along board the Wave Rider, and using a mixture of her antenna along with John Constantine's magic, they're able to get a hold of Sara Lance. And we get like, okay, so again, another scene that I'm mixed on, because on the one hand, I thought it was really sweet. On the other hand, I also think like maybe it kind of came off a tiny bit more stubborn than it was meant to. I don't know. So basically, Ava is able to communicate with Sara, and at a very good time, because Sara is getting overpowered by the other alien, not Gary, but basically the captain of the ship. And we think that we're thinking for a brief moment that Sarah's about to get frozen in stasis once again because she's unable to escape. But that's when Ava, says, she wants to marry Sara. She answers her question from earlier about the proposal from David Bowie's video, and she says yes to marrying her. But she also says, but you gotta come home first, Sara. And that's when that gives Sara enough encouragement to break through the glass and eventually escape. And then we get like a cool scene where Ava sees a lot of space debris after Sara's escape, so she knows it means that Sara must be alive. My nitpick with this scene, because I thought it was good for the most part, but it was kind of weird how Ava just kind of goes, but you have to come home to us, Sara. And she doesn't at all have a moment where she says, we're coming for you, we're coming to help you, Sara, or something like that. There's no moment where she says that we're coming to find you or anything like that. It's almost like, yeah, we know you've been kidnapped, so can you come back to us? Hey, we miss you. I know you're kidnapped and all, but, we miss you, so come home. I don't know. To me, it didn't seem as genuine just because of that, but I might be looking a little too much into that. Maybe I'm just, I don't know. To me, that's how it came off, but I'm sure that's not how it was meant to come off. But yeah, overall though, you know, I did think it was still a really sweet scene, especially with Ava like saying that she does want to marry Sara, and I really look forward to them being reunited, because I really do think that Ava and Sara are like just an amazing couple on the show. So I really hope this isn't one of those tragedies where, you know, the moment they're both ready to get married, one of them gets killed off. Oh god, I really hope they don't do that. But yeah, we then get one last scene where it's Sara and Gary as they're about to finally escape and head back into the temporal zone where they can meet with the other legends. But unfortunately, through some weird convoluted BS, they open up a portal using the rest of their fuel, which they apparently don't have enough of to get back to Earth, and they use it to open up a portal to a temporal zone, but they don't make it into the portal, so they're stranded in space. And the last scene we see is them crashing into a planet, and that's how the episode ends. So overall, I did think this was a really good episode, a really good way to kind of get you ready for the rest of the series, to introduce the kind of elements that we're dealing with in this episode. It was also interesting because they mentioned that the aliens that kidnapped Sara are time-traveling aliens, which makes me believe that those species will be like the main antagonists for the rest of the season, so that'll be kind of cool. We could also see some prisoner aliens that we see like kind of flying out of the ship once Sara escapes. There's a lot of prisoner aliens that are trapped in pods, and I could see them each like landing in different time zones on Earth, so I could totally see that also being part of the plot, is the legends having to go to different time zones in order to stop different aliens. And knowing Legends of Tomorrow, if that's the route they go with it, we will probably have either a Roswell, New Mexico episode or an Area 51 episode. I'm calling it right now. If we don't get either an Area 51 or Roswell, New Mexico episode, I'm going to be very, very disappointed. But, you know, guys, overall, this was a really good episode. Again, it hit on the emotional levels that it needed to without being overly emotional or anything like that. And I did think that, you know, even though a few of the scenes did bring up more questions than answers, and not in the way that a TV show is supposed to, I did think that for the most part it was pretty solid, and I did like some of the nods to continuity, especially some of the nods to Supergirl. But guys, at the end of the day, these are just my A+ opinions. We here at A+ Opinions always want to know what you guys think, so definitely let me know in the comments below if you enjoyed this episode as well. Definitely hit that like button, subscribe to our channel, but guys, above all, just remember to keep it A+.